Hi everyone, my name is Susan Gray. Today I'm going to be talking about officially conducting the Student-Teacher Composition Conference. That's a mouthful, but I wanted to make sure and distinguish this. This is not elementary, middle school, high school conferences. These are conferences that will be conducted with a professor and with a college freshman English student. For this lesson, we will be exploring best practices in the post-secondary field. Our learning goals for today will be for the graduate student to distinguish the rationale for composition conferencing, compare the effectiveness of written response versus one-on-one conferences, determine the importance of peer response in the Writing Center, identify several methods of conferences, and lastly, evaluate knowledge of effectively conducting the Student-Teacher Composition Conference. Let's begin with rationale for face-to-face conferences. What are the experts saying? Well, conferences help with interaction and collaboration. Conferences also give timely feedback, especially if done on a regular basis. And as far as the red ink, I'm going to use red ink again. Red ink grading wastes time. Teachers estimate that it takes them 20 to 40 minutes to comment on one paper. That's an enormous amount of time. It's really, really absurd. What are the advantages and disadvantages to face-to-face conferencing? Well, disadvantages, as you may well be aware, is time consuming. 15 minutes may not be enough time to take care of all of the students' questions. And they might be hesitant to open up to a teacher. And then you have the issue with limited English speakers. They're going to need more than 15 minutes. There's no way that you can do the sentence level issues and not speak to them about organization, content, those things. And then you have your speech or audio processing issues with some students. I think technology could easily remedy this, but it is still an issue. Advantages: the teacher can articulate in a concise and effective manner. This is often quicker and clearer than written teacher remarks with red ink, which can be misinterpreted. Student-teacher relationships can be strengthened through personal conferencing about writing. It employs the Socratic method of engagement, and it takes the same amount of time to conference as it does to mark up student papers. It's cumulative, meaning each little mini lesson or discussion will be remembered and level of understanding can grow. Let's compare written responses versus conferencing. Teachers' written responses on comments on students' papers, like we said, could take anywhere from 7 to 13.3 hours. One-on-one conferences take a little under 7 hours. Research shows written comments by teachers can confuse the author's purpose. How many of us have had something similar to this? Either maybe we've received something like this or we've written it. Spend all that time and energy marking up the paper. Do students read it? We don't know. We're hoping they do. But research shows one-on-one conferencing gives students reading and writing ownership to the student, not to the teacher. Written comments by teachers lack personal touch and are unclear to the student, like we just talked about. Conferencing is personal and gives time for students to address any areas that are unclear. Written response are written to the paper, not the student, whereas research shows that one-on-one conferencing is geared toward the student, not just the paper. Let's discuss some methodology. Two aids that are important for any teacher to use in the college level is peer response and the Writing Center. Peer response is done with a partner or small group. It's usually student-led, conducted inside or outside of classes. Students ask questions from a teacher-generated list. And it's for advice about revising and practice and editing. It's most effective when it's modeled and monitored. That's key. But it's not always effective for numerous reasons. Negative social interaction, hesitancy to speak truthfully, inaccurate editing. You get it. The Writing Center is wonderful because it engages students in exploratory talk with the tutor that works there, not presentational talk like you might have when they're talking to their teacher. So it gives that camaraderie. Again, they ask the Socratic method, and the teachers, they're not teachers, they're tutors, they're trained. unlike classmates. Other positives, it's done outside of class, so precious time can be utilized and you don't have to spend all that time in the class going through peer review. Most student writing centers will help with sentence level editing as well as in content. Some have a limited grammar policy, which is less favorable for the student struggling with grammar. So, can we take the good of everything, combine it together, and make effective student-teacher conferences? I think we can. So we're going to take peer response or group response that is guided, plus making good use of the Writing Center and having it be a requirement for the class, plus the teacher-student 15 minutes conference. It equals efficiency and greater outcomes. So what are the steps to conducting an effective conference? Well, first of all, we're going to approach the conference with the idea that the writer knows her work. We're just guiding him or her. We're going to greet the students and make him or her feel comfortable and check to make sure that he or she has visited the Writing Center. He or she should have an original draft with the corrections on it and a revised copy. Then you're going to read that copy and then ask questions. What are the stronger sections, the weaker, why? Who is your audience? Discuss rhetorical stance with her. What are you pleased with? What are you not so happy with? What did you learn in writing this? Is it finished? If not, what would you like to change? What surprised you in this essay? What did you discover while writing this? What is the key line or passage or thesis? Why is it so important? Along the way, an opportunity during the conference will probably present itself to give a mini lesson on tone, audience, or argumentation, depending on the assignment. These are the conversations that the student will remember. It's important to note the more conferences you have with your students, the better they will come to understand the concept of an audience and the responsibilities of a writer. So you're going to advise the students to make the correction and make her final draft. Encourage her to visit the Writing Center once again for further help if needed. So what are the outcomes of a successful conference? The student will leave with an improved draft with specific ways she will tweak the paper. She'll have a sense of ownership in her revisions, and she's going to take responsibility for final changes. And the teacher will have a better understanding of the student's strengths and weaknesses. There are various types of student-teacher conferences. Of course, one-on-one, that's the one we focused on today. And don't forget that it can be done in the classroom or the professor's office and also through video conferencing. There's also an instructor-led peer conference, which is kind of cool. It combines the best of both worlds so that the students can still work as peers in a peer group, but the professor is gently guiding them in a discussion and offering professional feedback. There's also group conferences. It's similar to instructor-led peer conferences. It's done with the teacher. This method can be done in or out of class, and it's not as personal as a one-on-one, but students can still benefit because they're listening to other students and the professor discussing an issue. Here are some more ways to simplify conferences to prevent teacher burnout. You could cancel class and hold conferences once or twice in lieu of class. Consider video conferencing. Hold conferences with smaller groups, not just individuals. And you can also conduct mini conferences during class time while students are working with a writer workshop. It can be done as little as 5 minutes where the teacher touches base, just checks in with the student, answers a few questions. Here's a sample class syllabus with peer editing and student-teacher conferences embedded. As you can see, the peer editing is worth 40 or 80 points, and the conferences are 20. Now, as a professor, I would bump that up to at least 50 or 100 points for the conferences, just to make sure that the students would attend. So in conclusion, student-teacher conferences make an effective difference in the writing of a freshman composition student. Conferences take time, but less or the same time as hand grading papers do. There's various ways to hold a conference, but the best is face-to-face in real time if you can. Conferences can be one-on-one or in small groups. Teachers can make conferences effective by requiring the conference portion, by including it as a graded assignment, requiring students to use peer response in the Writing center in addition to meeting with the teacher, asking meaningful questions, playing the role of writing coach, and making it work for them so burnout can be avoided and you can continue the conferences. So how much do you remember? Well, let's find out. Grab a sticky and a pencil and go ahead and jot down your answers and see if you get them right. Number 1, which of the following is not an effective question that will enhance students' learning? If you'd like to pause the video and answer, you may. Otherwise, I'm going to plow right through. The correct answer is A. Number 2, which of the following makes the student-teacher conference more effective? If you said D, you're correct. We're going to utilize peer response and utilize the Writing Center to get the most bang for our buck. When students come in, they've already had their papers edited and revised, and they're ready to discuss the more challenging things with us. Question 3. According to Nancy Summers, who's a great read, you have to read more about her if you're interested in this topic. What is the minimum amount of hours it takes a teacher to grade 20 papers? And the correct answer is C, 6.67 hours, a little under 7 hours to grade 20 papers. Number 4, how long does it take to conference with 20 students? And the correct answer is C, 6.67 hours. That's the same amount of time, correct? And the last question, number 5, which strategies represent effective ways to conference? If you said D, all of the above, you're correct. Face-to-face conferencing on a regular basis, and using the Socratic method of questioning are all effective ways to conference. I leave you with my overabundant Works Cited page. As you can see, there's just a little bit of information out there. So I hope that you learned a little bit more, and good luck with those conferences.